Imagine you're standing outside on a quiet night. The wind has completely died down, and the sky is just starting to dim. You see one star, then another, just softly blinking into view. And if you look up, you might catch this tiny, solitary light silently tracing a slow arc right across the dark sky.
Oh, I love that image. It's very peaceful.
Right. And I think if you're anything like me or, our listener to tuning in right now, you can't help but wonder who is up there.
Yeah.
Where are they going so quietly in the dark?
It's such a gentle, almost poetic question, really, because for centuries we've looked up at the sky and just felt this sense of romance and mystery.
Totally.
But, well, today the answer to that very quiet question is actually at the center of this incredibly modern, invisible, high-stakes game of cat and mouse happening right over our heads.
It really is.
Yeah.
And that is exactly the mission of our deep dive today. We're looking at some fascinating and honestly pretty thick source materials.
Oh, definitely.
We've got the latest 2026 FAA regulatory updates, some highly technical specs on crowdsourced tracking networks, and logs from these incredibly dedicated aviation enthusiast forums.
Right. The forums are amazing.
They really are. So we are going to explore how billionaires and corporate titans try to hide their flight paths from this vast global network of everyday aviation fans.
And just to set the context here, we should probably clarify that we aren't talking about, secret military spy planes or jets covered in radar-absorbing paint.
Right, no stealth bombers today.
Exactly. We're talking about standard civilian private jets. This is really a story about how completely public, off-the-shelf technology intersects with current FAA regulations. And pulling from the most current 2026 data, it is just thrilling to see how privacy is negotiated and really fought over in a space as open as the sky.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because before we can understand how the ultra-wealthy try to hide in the shadows up there, we really need to understand the light that's exposing them in the first place, right?
That makes perfect sense.
So what is the technical backbone here? How exactly does the world see the sky right now?
Well, to really get that, we have to talk about something called ADS-B, which stands for Automatic Dependent Surveillance Broadcast.
That is quite the mouthful.
It really is, yeah. But the concept is actually quite beautiful. Historically, we used ground-based radar. We'd bounce radio waves off a metal tube in the sky and read the reflection to find it.
Right, the classic spinning dish.
Exactly.
Right.
But ADS-B completely flipped that script. Now, the plane itself uses GPS to figure out exactly where it is, how high it's flying, and how fast it's going.
Oh, crazy.
And then it actively broadcasts that information out to the world.
Wait, really? So the plane is just up there shouting like, hey, everyone, here I am.
That's exactly what it's doing. It sends out this data over 1090 megahertz radio waves.
Yeah.
And it does this up to twice a second.
Wow. Twice a second.
Yeah. And crucially, along with its location, it broadcasts a unique electronic identifier. It's called an ICAO 24-bit address.
Okay, I've seen that term in the data. What exactly does ICAO mean?
Oh, right. It stands for the International Civil Aviation Organization. They assign this unique digital address to every single aircraft. You can think of it like an electronic fingerprint that never changes.
Okay, so it's a permanent digital ID badge. But who is actually listening to these radio whispers twice a second? Because the sources mentioned two very different networks.
Right. There are two distinct ways these signals are caught. First, you have the official networks. These are the FAA's high-reliability ground stations.
And they use those for air traffic control, right?
Exactly, to keep planes from bumping into each other. But the second network is where the real magic happens. This is the crowdsourced civilian network.
Oh, right. Sites like Flight Radar 24.
Yes. And more importantly for this cat and mouse game, sites like ADS-B Exchange, which are entirely community-driven.
And this is just wild to me. Because when you say civilian network, I picture, like, giant government radar domes hidden in the mountains.
Right, some James Bond villain lair.
Exactly. But it's not that at all. It's aviation hobbyists buying these cheap little USB dongles called RTL SDRs.
Yeah, they cost, what, maybe 20 or 30 bucks?
Yeah, super cheap. And they plug them into these tiny, inexpensive computers like Raspberry Pis. And they just stick a small antenna on their roof or their apartment balcony.
It's really a stunning example of decentralized tech.
It's basically a global, digitized neighborhood watch for the sky, just intercepting the raw radio waves directly.
That is a perfect analogy. And each one of those little homemade receivers can cover a radius of about 200 to 400 kilometers, depending on line of sight.
Wow.
So when you stitch thousands of these together, you get this massive decentralized net covering the globe.
But since the sky is completely filled with thousands of these little listening ears, how does anyone achieve privacy? I mean, if you're a billionaire, how do you hide?
That is the big question. And the answer is that you don't hide the physical plane, you manipulate the data layers.
Ah.
And to understand how they do that, we have to look at the difference between a plane's physical identity and its electronic identity.
Right, the physical identity is the tail number, isn't it? Like N620ATS, painted right on the side of the jet.
Exactly. Changing that painted number takes formal paperwork, repainting, certification. It's a huge hassle. But that electronic ICAO 24-bit address we talked about.
The digital fingerprint.
Right. That is actually separate from the physical paint on the tail. And that separation is the key to the wealthy's privacy toolkit.
Okay, so let's talk about the first tool in that kit, LADD.
Yes, LADD. It stands for Limiting Aircraft Data Displayed. It's a program run by the FAA.
And how does that help hide a jet?
Well, if a jet owner applies for LADD, the FAA basically agrees to filter that aircraft's data out of the official public data feeds that they provide to commercial tracking websites.
Okay, but hold on. LAD doesn't actually stop the plane from broadcasting its ADS-B radio signal, does it?
You hit the nail on the head. LADD does absolutely nothing to stop the physical 1090 megahertz radio waves coming out of the plane.
Ah, so if a hobbyist on their balcony catches that raw radio wave with their $30 USB stick, LADD is useless.
Completely useless. The civilian network just bypasses the FAA's filter entirely, which is why the wealthy needed something much stronger.
Which brings us to PIA.
Yes, the Privacy ICAO Address Program.
This one seems to cause a lot of confusion. How exactly does PIA work under the current 2026 rules?
You can think of PIA as an electronic temporary license plate.
Okay.
When a plane uses PIA, it stops broadcasting its permanent electronic fingerprint, and instead it broadcasts a temporary address assigned by the FAA.
No, wait, I remember hearing years ago that you had to wait like 60 days to request a new temporary ID. That seemed really impractical.
Yeah, that's actually a common misconception based on older rules.
Yeah.
In 2026, the wait time to request a new PIA is just 20 days.
Oh, wow. Only 20 days.
Yeah, but, and this is important, it doesn't automatically change every 20 days. Owners can just keep using the same PIA if they feel like it's still keeping them hidden.
But they can't just type in whatever fake ID they want, right? Like, they can't pretend to be a commercial flight to Hawaii.
Oh, definitely not. The FAA strictly assigns the IDs from a pool they control. It's not random, and they only allow one PIA per aircraft at a time. It's a very controlled illusion.
But there's a massive catch, isn't there? A really fascinating limitation to PIA.
Yes, there is. And it has to do with international borders. PIA is an FAA program, which means it is only valid in U.S. airspace.
Oh, right.
So imagine a billionaire taking off from New York and flying to London.
Okay, they're using their temporary ID, staying somewhat hidden over the U.S.
Right. But the moment they fly over the ocean and enter foreign airspace, international aviation rules kick in.
Oh, no.
Yeah. They are forced to drop the PIA and revert back to broadcasting their true, permanent ICAO address.
That is just incredible irony. So PIA doesn't make the plane invisible at all. It just makes it a little harder to instantly link that blip on the screen to a specific billionaire as long as they stay in the U.S.
Exactly. It adds friction, but not invisibility.
Okay, so let's ground this in reality. Let's look at the ultimate test case for 2026. Because there is no higher profile tracking target right now than Elon Musk's fleet.
Oh, absolutely. He is the perfect example of how these rules and technologies collide.
Let's set the context for his 2026 fleet. He's got a few aircraft, but the most famous one is N620ATS, which is a Gulfstream G650ER.
Right. That tail number is basically legendary in the tracking community at this point.
It really is. And then around 2025, a newer jet joined the fleet, N8628, a Gulfstream G800. And what's interesting is they aren't registered to Elon Musk directly.
No, they are registered to a company called Falcon Landing LLC.
Right, to obscure the direct ownership.
That's their baseline defense. But what's fascinating is that Musk doesn't just rely on one magic trick.
Because that wouldn't be enough.
Right. Historically, back around 2022, SpaceX actually struggled to get PIA implemented correctly. But now, in 2026, they use a highly sophisticated layered defense.
Okay, so what are the layers in this stack?
Well, first, they use LADD to filter themselves out of the official FAA data.
Makes sense. Check.
Second, they use PIA to mask the plane's domestic electronic signal.
Okay.
Third, they utilize Section 803.
Ah, right, from the 2024 FAA Reauthorization Act. That's the rule that lets owners hide their identifying information from public registries, right?
Exactly. It creates a blank wall if you try to look up who owns the plane. And then the fourth layer is operational. They swap between multiple aircrafts to dilute the focus of anyone trying to track them.
So what does this all mean? They have LADD, PIA, Section 803, and shell companies. It sounds bulletproof, but it still fails, doesn't it?
It does, and the reason it fails is beautiful in its simplicity. Because the civilian network, like ADS-B Exchange, relies on everyday enthusiasts catching raw 190 megahertz radio waves from their roofs.
They just completely bypass all the FAA's administrative shields.
Exactly. The radio waves don't care about LEDD filters or Section 803 redactions. And when you combine that raw data with the fact that PIA drops during international flights...
The illusion shatters.
Right. And you also have to factor in predictable flight patterns. If a mysteriously masked jet constantly flies between an airport near SpaceX in Texas and an airport near Tesla in California...
It doesn't take a genius to connect those dots.
Exactly. Dedicated trackers use context, they observe the patterns, and the disguise becomes entirely transparent.
It is a relentless technological arms race. Authorities and billionaires build these complex legal and administrative shields, but the raw physics of radio waves, combined with crowdsourced pattern recognition, just keep tearing them right back down.
It really is, and it forces us to kind of reevaluate the entire concept of public space. The sky used to be this vast anonymous void, but now it's a grid.
Yeah, an incredibly scrutinized grid.
Monitored constantly by this quiet, decentralized army of listeners.
It makes you look at a starry night a bit differently, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And, as satellite-based ADS-B networks become more advanced and more accessible in the coming years, it leaves you with a rather haunting thought. Will the concept of privacy in the sky soon become a luxury that even the world's wealthiest people can no longer afford to buy?